Beautiful. Welcome, everybody, to the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit, where we are illuminating the truth beyond physical health. And with me today, I have the pleasure of announcing Kathy Biehl. Kathy is a professional astrologer, psychic, and tarot advisor who helps business owners make decisions and better understand, while laughing about, all of the options in their life, as well as people and circumstances. She prides herself on being a bridge between intuition and the rational mind. So thank you so much, Kathy, for being on here with us today. I'm really excited to talk to you.
I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So first question I wanted to go ahead and ask you is, what does holistic health mean to you?
Health is actually a very multifaceted topic. We immediately think of our bodies, and that is a piece of it. But there is so much that goes on with us that will affect what's going on with our bodies. So I look at health as your state of mind, your emotional health, the state of your energy field, like how much you're picking up from other people, and also your habits and the physical vehicle that you inhabit. And all of these things in like the last year and a half, I mentioned to you earlier, have been brought to our attention with a sharpness and precision that we haven't really experienced in our lives, because a lot of things that we took for granted, we no longer take for granted. And we've all been forced to put our own daily schedule, our own well-being, any way that you define it, very much at the top of our list of priorities. So there you go.
Awesome. I love that. And you did mention how the last year and a half, based off of astrology, how that has actually affected us and our awareness surrounding health. So what exactly around astrology is affecting our health?
We have come out of a period of really extreme transformational aspects that have hit on the very foundations of our existence, our own personal infrastructure. And for many people, this had an ancestral component. It had a component having to do with goals, the institutions that you're part of. And a lot of things have just eroded and collapsed. And we are in the process of getting clear on and building a new construct individually and collectively for how we're going to move into the world and how we're coping with things. And there are very different elements involved in it for everyone, but daily habits, simplicity, I keep saying simplicity, daily habits, simplification, restructuring your goals and bringing your focus really into what is absolutely most important for you has become imperative. And also, let's not underestimate the level of pervasive, relentless stress everyone has been experiencing for a whole panoply of reasons. I say that we're undergoing persistent traumatic stress disorder. We haven't gotten to the post portion yet. And people they have a sense of timelessness. They're losing track of, what day is it, is one of the jokes. There's a joke about COVID brain, like brain fog, people just not knowing things. Our previous touchstones eroded, blew up, went away astrologically, and actually you can just look in your own life and go, yep, that's not there, that's not there, that's not there. And now we're in a phase of constructing and testing the new way that we're going about things.
Oof, I love that. I love that. And I know when it comes to astrology, it's not one size fits all. It may be affecting different people in different ways. So how is it that as a collective, we all seem to be on this same page of the dismantling of the structures that aren't working, and then the allowing the space for the restructuring of something new? How is that possible if we're all each individual humans?
The factors that have been causing this, the influences that have been causing this are the outer planets, which are generational influences. They're very slow moving. The quickest of them moves every 12 years, but the ones that are involved most in what's been going on have a cycle that goes from, one of them is 30 years, one of them is 84 years, one of them is 250 years. So they're very slow moving. And the dance that they do, the interaction that they do, affects the entire atmosphere. And then it affects a different part of your life, depending on where they've been digging away in your own chart and how they've been interacting with your own placements in your chart. Some people have had a worse time of it than others, believe it or not. Some people have had an easier time of it than others. But I mean, it's an inescapable influence. It's like a gigantic weather influence, and different people have different possibilities growing out of it, depending on how it's playing out in your own chart.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And what I heard in that was that it all comes down to perception, but you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Well, there are elements of this that are empirically provable. So, but it's how you deal with it, how you receive it, how you perceive it. Yeah. For some, that's in that point, yes. It's not like, is it there or not perception? It's more like how you react with it, how you interact with it. And I work a lot with homing thoughts. They're a feature of my weekly forecasts. And one that occurs a lot, specifically when a particular planet is active, is show me another way to look at this, or how does this benefit me? And sometimes getting upended out of something is the best possible thing that can happen to you, even if at the moment it occurs, you're collapsed in a fetal position on the ground.
100%.
We've all lived that.
At least once in our lifetime, and maybe multiple times in the last year and a half. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. I know that, again, like I said, you really pride yourself on being this bridge between the intuition and these intuitive hits that you're getting, specifically as a business owner, and how to rationally take that in your mind. So I'm interested in understanding a little bit more about how you go about helping business professionals make decisions based off of astrology.
Well, first off, I'm also a lawyer. So that gives that just gives credibility in ways that, okay, you can't be a complete flake if you did that. And there are a few of us running around. So, but that also means I understand the rational structure that all of this stuff occurs in. I do understand a lot of the business needs, the legal ramifications, the laws that you're working within. And I have a lot of different income streams myself. So I do understand from a rational point of view what it means to run a business. But and I've always had this dual streak in me. I said when I was young, it came from having one parent who was a scientist and one parent who was an artist, but it's actually really in me as well. And I've always had a kind of off in the fairy tale world side to me, but I focused for a long time on just the rational part and got very, very ill. And my adult life has been a process of listening more and more to the stuff that you can't point to the ground and say, this is where I got this. And I have found that the more you actually honor and listen to that, the clearer and stronger it becomes. So lately, I have been really encouraging people to gather whatever information their conscious mind needs to feel comfortable with. Like, do your research and then follow whatever the energetic impulse is within you, because your being will let you know, even if your mind is in an argument with yourself, which does happen, you'll have a pull in a direction or away from something. And at this point, the people who come to me are already at least interested in this, and many of them are wanting to get more in control of this kind of impulse. But all of us have learned through hard experience that when you ignore the impulse to stay away, you always find out why you had that impulse. So this is like you're putting your hand on a flame and you go, ooh, that really hurt. Or more often than not, there is a financial hit that you take or something that gets really messed up as a business owner. So that's part of it. I mean, they just the way I talk to business owners in language that they understand on, they see and they just seem to prize that law degree. Like, okay, it's good for something. And then they see that I can, I'm a functional person and I can validate their own hunches that they're already getting and help them feel more comfortable and stronger with going with those.
Right. I love that you tied that in as well. How long were you a lawyer for?
Oh, I still have my 2 law licenses a long time. Since my early 20s. I graduated from law school really, really early. So, and I practiced
Congrats.
in Houston for a long time and I tried to pass for normal and then it became clear. Nope.
I love
Nope,
that.
nope. You gotta, I'm an Aquarius, like gotta go do your own stuff. So
I
so
love that.
I have throughout my life attracted law clients who either never have had an attorney or who are just, to the left of the mainstream or were artsy or creatives in some way.
That's awesome. So you mentioned briefly about how you went down that route and you actually got sick from it.
Very.
So tell us a little bit more about that and then what your ultimate decision was to bridge these two worlds together.
The ultimate decision was one that took a long time. And it took me a very long time to openly embrace the intuitive slash psychic part of it, including openly using the label psychic. I fought that for a long time. And that came from growing up in Texas and being fearful that someone was going to come at me with a torch, quite honestly. So uh, I I went to law school because I had a lot of things that I was capable of doing and didn't know how I was going to earn a living. A lot of people who end up in law school don't know what else to do. They're very smart and they can't figure out what to do in the world. So I was one of those people. I was very unhappy. It took antidepressants to get me through. I just about had a snap my last year. Um, Psychiatrist made a deal with me that I would at least finish the degree. And I found a smaller firm that prized quality of life. I'm like, okay, we'll do this. And then their client base had horrific economic problems within my first year of being there, and the culture of the place changed drastically. So I started doing little things extracurricularly to keep my sanity. Like I took an art class at the museum school. I sang in a church choir. I started doing little articles for a weekly newspaper, and all of these things added up to the firm to she is not a serious person, which was a little disconcerting. And meanwhile, I developed a pretty scary case of ulcerative colitis and ended up getting rated for insurance purposes, which was a wonderful thing to have in your early 20s. So um, I got fired because they asked me if I would make a lifetime commitment to the firm. And I thought, you ask any man that question and you get a lie. And I still hold to that. And I started trying to become a freelance writer at that point and just moved in with another attorney that I knew and just did little work to keep things going. Like, well, I'll just do this for a little while and got my freelance writing career off the ground and just kind of trundled along. And just because I was my own boss, I made a lot less money, but I could handle my schedule. And I did more and more things like acting in alternative theater, performing, having a cabaret act. And gradually this led to moving to New York and giving up any pretense of being a normal person, which is easy to do in New York City because everybody has a day job and their real vocation. And now I'm out in outside of the city. And it took, in my last, I had my own law practice in Houston for 16 years. And in the last 6 years or so, I was working out of a metaphysical bookstore several times a month. And I had metaphysical clients who knew I was a lawyer, and my law clients, for the most part, didn't know I was also doing that stuff. And So amp that up more and more and more. And it just kind of grew into, well, that's the easiest thing to keep going once I ended up in the Northeast. And again, it took, even after, I would say I've been doing this for at least 30 years, and it's only been in the last 10 years that I've been really open and identifying. And this is the first year that I changed my tax return to have
Nice.
this be what I do as my main
Congrats.
income. hmm So, these hesitations are hard to get rid of.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads me to my next question, where if somebody is listening right now, and they're having this hunch, they're having this itch that just won't go away in terms of that they're meant for more, they feel like they want to expand past their 9 to 5 or past corporate. What advice would you give to somebody in that position?
I would say give yourself a little bit of time on a regular basis to do whatever it is. And also that when you were really, really young, you had an unfettered idea of who you were before the world banged it out of you. And many of us had weird little talents that made us very, very happy, especially before we entered grade school. And there are clues for you in that. There are clues. And it may not be what you end up doing to support yourself, but there's a way of reframing existence so that the way you bring your money in actually is like being the parent to your own creative impulses. And it's easier to deal with 9 to 5 or the corporate job if it is fueling something. I have a relative who does this. I have a sister who's a composer, and the pandemic has been a really good thing for her because it's taken away her commute. So in the evenings, instead of sitting on the subway, she's been composing up a storm, and she still has her, she works remotely. She still has her job, but she's launched herself as she's become a major force in the neoclassical world. And that's how she defines herself. If you went to her Facebook page, it wouldn't have what her job is, it would have what she's building. And that's just
Mm.
an example for how you can go about this.
Yeah, that sounds like a key piece of advice, because again, it's that bridge between the both, where it's not
Mhm.
just saying, I don't feel 100% fulfilled with my 9 to 5, but it's paying the bills right now, let me throw it out the window to follow my dream. I feel like that starts to become a slippery slope. That's where you hear the starving artist, those types of things. But I love this idea of integrating just a little bit
Mhm.
of what it is that you feel like your soul wants to do, and then just seeing what happens, providing enough space to see what happens from there. Because it could be just a hobby, and it also could grow into your next business or your first business. So just really
Right.
allowing that to happen.
And I'll also throw in some people have an underlying issue that work has to be struggle. And so sometimes they find that if they take the thing they love and make this is how they're going to earn a living, they drain the joy out of it.
Mm.
So there may be issues that you end up having to being invited to deal with in yourself. But in the meantime, you can at least ease the other stuff in.
Right. Right. And I know a major part of what you do is finding the joy and creating the joy in the form of laughter of decision making. So for somebody if somebody's super serious and they take every decision, like you said, as a struggle or something that just has to be hard in order to find success on the other side, how do you do that? How do you use astrology? How do you use the talents that you have in order to make decision making fun?
Well, I will tell you, I do have clients that fit what you're describing. And if someone's personality is really that way, I can be as lighthearted as possible, and they're still going to be that way. So I just endeavor not to add to it, and I will present the information in whatever way they're going to take it. Um, but if if I sense an opening, I do all kinds of stuff. If a song occurs to me, I might start singing it, and that kind of gets people by surprise. And or if I find a way to tap into a memory or a symbol. And I have over the years found that if either a memory of mine pops into my head or some like seemingly random image or idea pops into my head, I don't even question it anymore. I'll just say, this just occurred to me. And usually it's got an immediate correlation for the other person, whether it means anything to me or not. So that's one way I get through
I
to
love
them.
that. Would you consider that a part of your psychic abilities?
Must be. I mean, I must be picking it up from somewhere. I have learned that if I am given something that I went through, if it just pops into my head, I'll say, okay, here's a parallel for you. This is what I experienced. This may have meaning for you. And it's kind of like in an AA or an Al-Anon meeting, like, oh my God, someone else went through this. Oh. And
Right.
they relax into it, like, I'm not such a freak. I'm not so alone.
Right. I love that. And again, it just goes back to providing that space, just
Hmm.
providing the space for that to occur, honestly. And I love that you come from a place of sharing your own experiences and allowing the other person, again, just going back to the space, allowing the other person to see the parallels, not
Hmm.
telling them what to do, not forcing them into a corner,
Right.
but just saying, "Hey, try this on. This is what happened to me. Do you see a parallel in it?" And typically when the pressure's off like that, I've noticed that there's a lot more breakthroughs, especially in decision making,
Mhm.
um, especially for people who are in high stress environments or just are fast paced and kind of high strung. So I love that you provide that.
Also, I will not make decisions for people, and this irritates some people. Some people want to put the responsibility onto someone else, and I will not do that. And one time in my law practice, years ago, I had a client who was looking at crumbling finances and really facing deciding how he was going to shut his business down or that he was going to shut his business down. And he wanted me to tell him to shut his business down. And I refused. And I had a lot of toys on my desk. So I just picked up a magic 8 ball and handed it to him and said, consult the executive decision maker. And he immediately went, okay, I'm going to shut it down. As soon as I made a joke out of it, he knew what to do.
I love that. Oh my goodness, I love that. And again, I wanted to acknowledge that that's like coming from that place. It's so much more empowering to the client or the decision maker. You know,
Mhm.
it's like I'm not here to tell you what to do. Again, just providing the space, and I trust that your intuition is solid enough to know exactly what to do. Because I make up that a lot of people are not tapped into this intuitive power that we really all hold. We really all hold this. So, what do you feel like is possibly blocking people from reading their intuition properly?
Number of things. They might have been taught. It might have been unsafe when they were young. Being in touch with your intuition when you're really young, if you're dealing with a family situation that's struggling to keep their wits about them, where people like children like that are really inconvenient if the parents aren't in the space to deal with it. Increasing, it's less so now, but there are a lot of people who were brought up that way. So they still have the memory of it being discounted, being essentially gaslit for long portions of your life, being told, oh, you didn't get that. Oh, you didn't see that. Um, so that's one really big reason right there. And another is until recently, it's been made fun of or discounted or treated like, ooh, the devil's going to come get you, or some kind of weird witchy thing, or that you have to be a special type of person in order to access it. But I will say, social media has gone a long way to erode a lot of that because it's now really trendy to be intuitive. The witches of TikTok, like there's all over the place now. So everybody gets exposed to it, everyone gets exposed to it. I would be surprised. Even
Right.
the most conservative people have it floating across their field somewhere. I mean, it's all over the media in terms of entertainment. And that tells you something right there. The fact that there have been long running shows since the 90s that had otherworldly slash magical themes to them, I think has made it a lot easier for the people who are just now coming into adulthood, for that to be a matter of fact aspect of their lives. But people who, Gen X and older, it's more of an issue.
Absolutely. Oh, so mm, I know you were talking about this is just, I'm so excited having this conversation. So, you were talking about how astrology has affected our awareness over the last year and a half. What do you see coming up for us in the remainder of 2021 and beyond?
This year has two really big themes. One of them I mentioned, which is a new construct locked into place. And actually, this happened around the December solstice in 2020. So the important event of 2021 happened right before the year started.
Mm.
And that event is getting stress tested all year long. In the middle of February was the first really tight stress test. And here is the abiding image for it. And that's the power grid going down in Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma. And got to come up with a new way of dealing with things. In many people's, and the royal family had a whole bunch of stuff happen at that point as well. And these things are all going to play out throughout the year. So everyone in their own lives this year is dealing with innovation, new ways of interacting with people, new concepts of what your personal responsibility is, coming to grips with so much of life now being virtual and online. And that's now going to be a feature of
Mm.
existence, even as things open up and we start interacting more and more. But there's been a leveling with that. Think of how many celebrities lost their hallowed, untouchable status and allowed people into their homes on a regular basis and immediately interacting with social media. And that did start very much so spring of 2020. So that kind of thing will evolve more and more and more as we figure out, all right, now how are we going to move ahead on this? How are we going to rebuild things? How are we going to set things up differently? And what responsibility do we have for our interconnectedness to each other? So that's theme one. Theme two is all year long, we are finishing up a process that started last summer that is a crash course in the immediate real world impact of words and beliefs, of becoming more aware of our mental loops, the stories that we tell ourselves, the beliefs that we have that have grown out of the chatter that we have, the stuff in our heads, the stuff on social media, and seeing the real world impact of things you say, things you think, things you believe. And we have a massive invitation all year long to revisit this stuff, rewrite a lot of it, and upgrade.
Whew.
That's from the eclipses.
So how would somebody go about, let's say they again they have this hunch, they know that there's something else that's happening right now, but they can't necessarily see it, name it, touch it, taste it. What what tools would you provide for somebody that is just getting started into viewing this, into understanding that the planets, the stars, the environment, even your thoughts are all interconnected to the way that we choose to move in the world?
I have a number of ways I go about this. The first is helping people become aware of how much they soak up from their environment. I do have a free 1 hour course on my site in my shop called Reclaiming Your Energy. And it just gives you a few ways of becoming aware of what you're carrying from other people and little mind games you can use to dump it. So that's one way. Also, I help people uh, just start to notice the stuff that runs through their heads all the time. And I have two very short visualization meditations for free on my YouTube channel that I will refer new clients to if it becomes clear that this is an issue. And one of them that takes you to the center of your mind and you hear the chatter that's in there. And another one helps you like burn away beliefs that really don't fit who you are right now. I also can help two other big ways. One is I have a series of meditations and visualizations that have people work with specific archetypes depending on what their images are. Planetary archetypes, meet them, work with them, get gifts from them. And even if you've never done this sort of thing before, uh, everybody always comes out like sort of freaked out that they really heard something and really realized some stuff. Um, and then apart from that, I always put whatever is going on now in the context of a continuum. I always look at recurrences and cycles. And if someone comes to me for a reading, I do not start with right now. I start with how we got there.
Mm,
And I always show when something has come back around again that they went through 19 years ago or went through 12 years ago, and how they're different now. And that's the moment I love best in a new client conversation, when I'll give a date and there's dead silence as they realize that's what happened then, and they make this click and see how what they're doing now is on the through line of where they were before.
wow. That's incredible. That's super, super valuable. And I know,
Right.
yeah, you're like, of course. That's why I'm
I
doing
think it's
it.
very valuable.
I love that. So speaking of visualizations and guided talks by you, I know you actually have a free gift to offer to this audience. So I'll go ahead and invite you to let us know what that is.
It is an internal guidance system visualization, your inner GPS, and it helps you link your own inner guidance to the input you're getting from your physical senses.
Mm,
It's not very long, and it has startled some people. So that'll jumpstart you in this process.
perfect. So get ready. You heard it. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Get ready to get startled. Get ready to get your world shaken up just a little bit. Oh, thank you so much. And if you had to leave the audience with just one takeaway, one tidbit that they can actively bring into their lives right now, what would that be?
Previous rules of reality don't apply anymore, so why not live in a way that makes you happy?
Mm, mic drop. Amazing. We'll just leave it at that. So, thank you so much, Kathy, for being on here and sharing all of your gifts and your wisdom with us all. And if we helped one person to acknowledge that there's this very, very real bridge between, your intuition, the things that you cannot see, and the physical, then I think that we're doing some good stuff here. So, thank you for being on.
Happy to be here.
And for those of you watching, we will see you on the next episode.